Now the last presentation before the break is by Andrea Inamorato dos Santos. I hope I pronounce your name well. She's working with the European Commission, the Joint Research Center, and she will tell you something about the initial findings of the research of the center. So please. And this one is 50 minutes.
Very happy to be the last one of this morning then. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, conference chairs. Thank you very much for the invitation to being here today. First, I'd like to introduce the Joint Research Center, for the ones who do not know it. We are the European Commission itself. We are not an agency, but we are responsible for the research arm of the European Commission. So we are not policymakers. We do not make policies at an European level, but we work in the intersection between research evidence and policy making, right? So we do research in order to inform policymakers, both at the European level and also at a member state level, to all ministries of education in this case. We are based in Seville, we're not based in Brussels. And in there we have research in a number of areas: agriculture, climate, and the field of education. So to date, we have more than 100 publications. I'd suggest that our main business is to do research and publish reports to inform the general public of our research. And one of the research that I would like to mention today is about open education, right? This is where we locate blockchain in education, in the field of education, within the broader umbrella of open education. So last year we published this report, which provides a framework on how to open up education, mostly focusing on higher education institutions, and we developed the 10 dimensions of open education. And I have highlighted in there where we see, most and foremost, blockchain would fit within those 10 dimensions. It definitely is about technology, but not only that, it's also about recognition of credentials, both in formal and informal learning. It's about collaboration between stakeholders, and also about research, if you think of intellectual property management in the new way of publishing academic journals, for example. Important to say is that all those dimensions of open education interrelate, they overlap with one another, right? But in this particular case of blockchain, I think we could certainly say that technology, recognition, collaboration, and research are the ones that it touches upon the most. I think this report is a good starting point for us to start locating blockchain within the education field. Okay, so very briefly, this is the research areas in which we have reports published. We deal with a number of areas as individuals, organizations, policy and society, and that's where the Open Education and Open Edu Policies study is located. And then you see, we call our blockchain in education study, in which we involve many stakeholders. Some of them are here today. They have contributed to it. Thank you very much in advance. We locate it as an anticipatory study, exploratory, because we are still in the phase of trying and find out the potential, the challenges, and the key issues of blockchain in education. So that's why it's located as an anticipatory study. Okay, so who is involved in this study? The overall coordination of all our projects, including digital competences, is by Yves Pony, and the main researchers of this study is Alex Grech and Anthony Camilleri, both from Malta, and myself, I am the study designer and also project manager. In this study, what we tried to do was to create a report that would be reader-friendly. A report that would serve the purpose of informing policymakers that come from a non-technical background. So we try and use very simple language and explain the main concepts of blockchain and then discuss issues of its usability, challenges and key issues. And we focus on some user cases. We discuss we have case studies from the Open University in the UK, from MIT, Learning machine and certainly Blockcerts is discussed in there because it's based on open standards, and we consider it an important part of open education, the openness aspect. University of Nicosia, the Malta Education Institutions, the Ministry of Education of Estonia that has very good initiatives towards blockchain, and obviously the Netherlands case, right? So this is why we try and provide an overview of what's going on in these countries and within the ministries, etc., so that people can start having an idea. How can we move forward? How can we push the field forward? Okay? Right, so this is the report that it's written, it's being editing, the final bits and pieces, and we are hoping to publish by this autumn, by the end of October, beginning of November at the maximum. And we'll make sure that it will be widely circulated within the blockchain network. Okay, so very briefly, I'm not going to get into discussing in depth, obviously, because there's no time, but I'm just going to mention what we are covering in this report. So the goal was to have the state of the art, where do we stand with blockchain in education research and the developments in Europe, although we do bring in case studies from the US, as I mentioned, MIT, for example. And we also propose a set of recommendations for policymakers, right? Both for governments, but also for educational institutions on how possibly to push the sector forward. We obviously had to adopt a qualitative methodology. We are not making any strong claims about blockchain yet because it's very early days in the field. So we decided to go for interviews and involve the stakeholders of different sorts of communities to gather information and to discuss what they consider are the successes and the key challenges to date. Okay, so briefly, the report discusses the key issues and also why blockchain. Why would you go for blockchain? So we discuss a lot of the social value of blockchain, to include aspects that we're discussed here today, but mostly transparency, social accountability, immutability, self-sovereignty, collaboration, etc. We also explore the need for a trust. Yeah, and this is one of the main, actually one of the main issues that we found out is that in education, when it comes to issuing credentials, trust is an essential aspect. So we discussed blockchain and trust a lot as well in the report. Okay, we also have the recording of academic achievements and the likely take-up. So we talked to some European university associations, such as EADTU, to see where they think, we stand at with blockchain at the moment, and the likelihood that European universities will actually go for it and work in collaboration. We also discuss brand and reputation, because there is a lot of concern of education institutions that they want to keep, they want to go open, but at the same time they want to safeguard their reputation and their branding. So how can we actually meet, these two aspects? In talking about recognition, I also like to show that we have a report published on the accreditation of non-formal learning already. It's basically focusing on MOOCs, massive open online courses, and open badges and credentials issued to open learners, that find a MOOC online, take these courses, and then they want some sort of recognition. And I think that's the very first step for us to move on and think about these open badges and open qualifications or accreditations to be registered in the blockchain. So I see this blockchain report as a continuation of this open cred report, which is already available. Okay, and finally, opportunities and challenges. We also discuss some technical aspects, interoperability, the decentralized nature of blockchain versus the centralized nature of credentials, and the set of recommendations. So just to show some main conclusions, we discuss, obviously, we found out that it's very early days for us to make big claims, because most of the case studies that we discussed, they are still in a piloting phase. and that's why we opted for a qualitative approach. We see there is potential for blockchain to disrupt the market in terms of who owns the data, of students' information systems, etc. So this is why we are really interested in exploring this disruption aspect of blockchain. The open implementations of technologies and the shared competence of the market. So we see that both public companies and private companies and organizations, in this case of blockchain in particular, need to work together to develop the field forward, because there are different stakeholders and different challenges to everyone, and obviously also different risks to everyone. So there needs to be some sort of consensus, so we recommend that they work together. Also, to finalize, I'd like to show that we have 2 other upcoming reports. Going Open is a policy recommendation report for member states and the European Commission itself. In case studies on policies for open education, we have researched the 28 member states of the European Union, and we are presenting cases of policies in which open education is designed. We have some cases of e-government and open government partnerships in which the digital accreditation of learning is put forward as a policy. So I hope that you'll be interested in reading this report, which we are launching next month at the OER World Conference in Slovenia. And finally, I'd like, obviously, since we are in the Netherlands, I'd like to, and I'm part of the scientific committee of this conference, I'd like to invite everyone to participate in the OE Global Conference in April next year, and hopefully we'll be able to also discuss blockchain in there. I have made my presentation available in SlideShare, so that you can check out further if you need. Thank you very much.